Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would come and talk about some absolutely incredible 5-star nonfiction reads that I have been reading for Nonfiction November. I don't know what happened or why I got so lucky. Several of the books that I selected for my November TBR have been absolutely incredible reads. Some of my favorite books of the year could easily be in this pile that I have sitting next to me. So, man, it's just been an absolutely amazing nonfiction month. I don't tend to read or search out a lot of nonfiction and read it as often as I want. I think this year I read a bunch at the beginning of the year for the BookTube Prize, and that just put me off of reading nonfiction for a little while because I had some very big, dense topics in there, which is also not my favorite style of nonfiction. But it has definitely turned around in the month of November. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is actually a book that I picked up because of my subscriber favorite project. Last year, I asked my subscribers to give me what their favorite book that they had read in 2022 was. And man, I got a number of people gave me a comment, which was absolutely incredible. And I found some amazing books that way. So much so that I want to continue it on in 2024. So I have a short out there asking for people what their favorite book was for 2023. And I would love to develop a TBR for next year. You can also leave your favorite book on this video as well. And I will hopefully have a video in December announcing which books I'm going to try and read in 2024. Should be an interesting challenge because I am still on the Read What You Own challenge, and I've only read 10 so far. So we're gonna have to balance it with the library probably, but I would like to continue that project. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is the one that was suggested by Dia over at Novel Idea. I will leave her channel linked in the description below for you. You should absolutely go check her out. She's one of the nicest people on BookTube and is just an absolutely lovely person to talk to. I talk to her fairly frequently on Boxer, so absolutely go check out her channel. But the book is Boys in the Boat by Daniel James Brown. If you're not familiar with Boys in the Boat, it is the story of the 9 men that are competing to go to the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, Germany. Yeah, difficult time in Germany, and it is an absolutely compelling story. Now, what's really interesting about this is there's so many components of this book that make it like an ideal book for me. One, it's narrative nonfiction. I love a good nonfiction that is going to tell me a story. A nonfiction that is just back to back to back facts. Oh, I'm going to struggle. I'm going to struggle in a big way with that one. But this one really has just a lovely story to it. 2, it gives me a character, or in this case, a real life person to root for in the name of Joe Rance. He's one of the young men in the boat or trying to get in the boat. And his upbringing is part of what builds this underdog story as part of this. And his story is heart-wrenching when he is a young boy. Yeah, it's very, very tough. 3, it is set in the Pacific Northwest. This rowing crew was actually at University of Washington. I live in Washington State, so that's a third component that put this book really highly for me. And 4, it features a lot of the outdoors in the form of rowing. Now, I'm not a rower, but I am a kayaker. I love to be out on the water, and any book that is going to take me outside in Washington State, love it. Absolutely love it. So this particular book starts off really talking about Joe and his upbringing and him not having any money, him taking whatever jobs he can. He has a very difficult home life, not necessarily because of anything that he has done. And it sets the stage for this whole piece where he is trying to get on the rowing crew at University of Washington because he knows if he can get on the freshman crew, he has a promise of a job and a promise of a place to live, which for him is crucial. There's a point in this book where he's talking about where if he doesn't get that, he knows he's going to end up going and living in the shack in Western Washington, and that's going to end up being his life because he can't afford to go to college without that. Oh, just incredibly well done. And his time in and out of the boat is a really good component of the story. The book is a little difficult when they talk about the boat itself and talk about how it's made. Some of those pieces, if you're not a big rowing fan, I think would drag potentially a little bit. But the story of him, his teammates getting into this, finally being in this boat, going to the Olympic trials, going to Germany is absolutely incredible. And then what happens in Germany, I was just like rooting for him as if this hadn't happened yet. It's such a good book, such an incredible book. Like I said, so many components of it. Dia did a really good job of suggesting this book to me. I loved this particular book. It very much has a feel of Unbroken in the style. If you've not read Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand, fantastic book. This is a similar style to it. So I have a feeling if you liked Unbroken, you'd probably like this one as well. But Boys in the Boat, absolutely 5-star read, easy 5-star read for me. I absolutely loved this particular book this month. The next book is probably the one I'm most surprised by. It's one I picked up for the display prompt for Nonfiction November, and it is Disability Visibility edited by Alice B. Wong. It says edited by because this is a collection of essays by a wide number of different people. And all of the disabilities that are kind of framed in this book are all different. I don't remember reading one alike. From one story to the next. And what is really amazing about this book is the disabilities that are there are sometimes not named, or they are only one very small component of the story that someone is telling. And I thought that was truly brilliant. I thought it brought forward the people, not the disability. And it was truly, truly well done. There were a number of stories in this that I personally connected to. I do have some family members with some chronic illnesses, and it has been so incredibly tough to watch them go through some of that. And a couple of the essays in here really kind of hit home for that. One of them is called I'm Tired of Chasing a Cure by Liz Moore. And that is something that I see one of my parents go through day in and day out, this idea that she's going to be cured. And it's just heart-wrenching to watch. It's so incredibly difficult. And I wish it wasn't this path that she's having to go through. But really, really well done, that one. The other one is similar in title, When You're Waiting to Be Healed. So that's the second one. June Eric Udori wrote that particular one. Similar kind of idea behind it. The other one that I liked quite a bit was when we're talking about, there's one in here about a woman and her guide dog, and how it's got guide dogs don't lead blind people. We wander as one. I am a dog lover. So for me, that story was very, very sweet. I have marked a number of chapters in here as ones that I just really, really appreciated. And yeah, it's just, I think this book, I think it's one that is a great book to read if you are not around people with disabilities. I think it gives a good perspective. And that is what I find really incredible about this. It's very uplifting in a lot of ways. Even though a lot of what the disabilities are in this book are very, very difficult, it still felt really uplifting. Absolutely perfect for the display prompt. And I loved this book. Easy 5-star. Again, I was very surprised by it because I'm not usually a fan of short story collections or essay collections, but wow, this one definitely hit me in a lot of ways. So that was the second book. The third book that ended up being a 5-star read is also because of the subscriber favorite project. And this one came to me from Heidi at My Reading Life. I will leave her channel linked in the description below for you. She's absolutely wonderful. Highly recommend you go and check her out. And the book that she said was one of her favorite books from last year was How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith. And the front of this says, A Reckoning with the History of Slavery Across America. Now this book actually takes it and breaks it up into multiple sections where Clint Smith is actually going and visiting some of these historic sites. One being Thomas Jefferson's plantation. I believe it was called the Whitney Plantation, sorry. And he is actually there, and they have tours of this, and they have people giving the history of the place. Thomas Jefferson is a very fascinating character, and I learned a lot reading this book in that I didn't know he actually owned slaves. I assumed he was based more northern, and didn't own plantations. So that was a surprise. He also had a long-standing relationship with one of the women that was believed to be one of his slaves and had multiple children with her. And I didn't know that either. I also didn't know that at this time that slaves could be considered collateral for loans, and banks could take possession of slaves when they default on loans. That is just a mind-boggling idea of that. And they also talk about things like the grave robbing of especially African-American slaves at this time because they needed them for medical science, and it was there. No one was going to complain. So there was a lot of things like that. They talk about Angola prison. They talk about once slavery was outlawed, then it shifted to renting or leasing convicts from the prisons to work in the fields, which was a horrible, horrible scenario. Also in there, they talk a lot about the unfairness of the trials that would happen and how you didn't have to have a unanimous jury convicting someone. It could be 10 people or 9 people on the jury, and that caused a lot of problems as well. But this book has so much difficult content in it, but really, really well done. And I really like how he went and tried to get all other perspectives. He goes into the far South. He's talking to people at the Daughters of the Confederacy. He's talking to people who are doing reenactments of the Civil War. And he is really digging deep into the mindset of these people. And it also gave me a really interesting perspective, I think, on the monuments. It made me rethink a little bit. I just read not too long ago, All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby, and there is a statue in that. And it made me just really think, wow, I wish I had read this and then read All the Sinners Bleed, because that would be interesting to read this after having, or read S.A. Cosby after having read this. What I did do with this, though, is I'm not sure if this was the best or the worst choice that I made. I ended up closely following this book with this one, The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. Pulitzer Prize winning novel by Colson Whitehead. And these two together, they are a powerful pairing. But so much of what he talks about here is featured in this. The grave robbing is in it, just the abuse, the people switching things around. They talk about how in this particular book, they changed owners so many times because of the defaulting on the loans, the brutality of the foreman on the plantations. Absolutely incredible in this particular book. And reading them together, there were a couple scenes in this that I picture him, Clint Smith, kind of in that. One of them was when they go into a barn and there's just hanging on the wall, manacle after manacle after manacle after manacle, handcuffs. And then they say something about the children as well. And it just really brings into the forefront just what this time period would have been like. And they do talk a little bit in this also about the impact on the children and how they wanted the slaves to keep having children because that's how they grew their slave population. And it's just heart-wrenching, but very, very good. How the Word is Passed, I would say great to read with this, but be prepared emotionally. These are tough books. But very, very good. The next couple of books that I have, I was surprised that they weren't 5-star reads. The first one is Travels with Charley by John Steinbeck. I read this with Dia over at Novel Idea, and I thought that this book was going to be a 5-star read for me. I liked John Steinbeck quite a bit. I've read several of his books, East of Eden, Grapes of Wrath, Cannery Row. I mean, just a fair number of his books. So I was so excited going into this one. This one has its moments of brilliance. It does. When he is talking with his dog, Charley, absolutely phenomenal. When he's talking about his dog, I love it. When he's interacting with people, fantastic a lot of the time. But the rest of the time, it's kind of a slog to get through. But there were enough moments in it that it did still kind of in between that 3 and 4-star mark for me. I wanted it to be a 5-star. It just didn't quite get there for me. But oh, I love Charley. Charley just has his own little personality in there. And when Charley is sick, when he's out traveling, my heart was like, oh my gosh, please don't tell me that Charley's going to pass away as part of this book. I don't know if I'm ready for that. So, but very, very good, not 5-star read that the others have been. And the last book that I'll talk about is one that I did as a buddy read with Tiffany over at Beautiful Minutia, and it is Grandma Gatewood's Walk by Ben Montgomery. So Grandma Gatewood is also known as Emma Gatewood, and she's a fascinating person who decided at the age of 67 that she was going to through hike the Appalachian Trail, which is 2,000 plus miles, extends all the way from on the southern side, all the way up to, I believe, Maine. I can't remember the exact starting and ending points. I live on the West Coast, so that's a little harder for me to remember exactly where this starts and ends. But at the age of 67, she tells tells her children she's going out for a walk. Well, what she didn't tell them is that the walk would be 5 months long and that she would have multiple times where she would be in major peril. So heading out on the Appalachian Trail, she had just a rucksack of, you know, a tied bag of stuff. She had no sleeping bag. She had no rain gear. And she was walking in, you know, her just standard kind of tennis shoes. And when we're with Grandma Gatewood on the walk, that part of it, I love her. I love her backstory, rough backstory. I mean, not an easy read in any way, shape, or form in regards to her backstory. Be aware there are some trigger warnings in there of abuse, things like that. And how she came out of that, I found really to be just admirable. But her going out on the trail, the criticism that I would have is I don't have enough of her and her perspective. She's incredible. I would love to have heard more from her, more from when she was out on the trail. I mean, I know it wasn't written by her. He got a lot of information from her diaries, from things like that. And if I could have had more of that with her, I think it would have been just a really powerful book. Fortunately, it ends up coming out a little bit repetitive, but oh, I want to go hiking. I would say I'm not 67, I am 51. I don't have the number of years that Emma Gatewood had on her, but oh man, if I could go out and hike the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail, that'd be incredible. I don't know that I'll ever make that kind of a journey though. That idea of being out for months on the trail is a bit more than I think I want, but I did start investigating like sections. Can I go do sections? So I think that's what this book really is meant to do, inspire people. And she really inspired a lot of the nation to start taking care of the Appalachian Trail. And she became quite famous as she was journeying on this trail. I'm just thinking, as one of her children, what it must have been like to suddenly see your mom's on the news and you had no idea where she was. She ended up actually hiking the Appalachian Trail 3 times and hiked across the United States on the Lewis and Clark Trail, I believe. So she just would get out and she just would walk and she loved it. But she was very lucky that she didn't have more issues, more problems. Her first attempt at hiking the Appalachian Trail, which failed, she legitimately almost died. And so it was fascinating that she decided to go out again. But Grandma Gatewood's walk, I would still recommend it. It just wasn't quite the 5-star, but man, did it motivate me. I really want to go out and start hiking again. Not perfect because it's very cold, starting to get very cold here, and the snow has started happening in the mountains. So hiking season is pretty much over here, but oh, I'm really, really excited after reading this particular book. So that's what I have for you for my 5-star and 4-star reads for the month of November for my nonfiction. Like I said, who would have known I would have had such an amazing book, such an amazing set of books, because I have Grandma Gatewood's Walk, How the Word is Passed, Disability Visibility, Boys in the Boat. Oh, I have to reach it. And Travels with Charley. Those are the 5 books that I ended up finishing in the month of November for Nonfiction November. Absolutely incredible. How was your nonfiction reading in the month of November? I'd love it if you leave me a comment down below. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, everyone. Thanks. Bye.